October 1963, Riverside International Raceway. A prototype Chevrolet with no badges screams past the timing tower at speeds that shouldn't exist, leaving Ford and Chrysler engineers questioning the laws of physics. Under that anonymous hood sat Chevrolet's most guarded secret, the 427 Mystery Motor, an engine so advanced it wouldn't officially exist for another 2 years. But this wasn't just early development testing. This was GM's forbidden racing program, operating in shadows 4 years before the Camaro was supposed to debut. Tonight, the classified story of Chevrolet's ultimate deception and the phantom muscle car that rewrote American performance history before vanishing into corporate mythology. The war context. By 1963, General Motors was living a dangerous double life that threatened to tear the corporation apart from within. Publicly, GM had imposed a strict racing ban in response to the 1957 Automobile Manufacturers Association Agreement, officially withdrawing from all motorsports activities to avoid antitrust scrutiny and public safety concerns. But behind closed doors in Warren, Michigan, a shadow war was raging against Ford's total performance campaign that was dominating every racing series that mattered. Ford's 427 Galaxies were humiliating Chevrolet on NASCAR tracks every Sunday, turning racing into a weekly advertisement for Ford's superiority, while GM watched helplessly from corporate exile. The muscle car revolution was exploding across teenage America like cultural dynamite. Every weekend, kids were discovering that horsepower was the new currency of rebellion, and GM was missing the entire party. While Ford bragged about racing victories in magazine ads, Chevrolet was stuck promoting fuel economy and family values to a generation that couldn't care less about either. Corporate executives in the GM tower were watching their performance reputation hemorrhage market share in real time. Young buyers were choosing Mustangs over Corvettes, Galaxies over Impalas, anything with Ford DNA over GM engineering excellence. The company that had created the small block V8 was being outgunned by their own abandoned innovations. The mission was treasonous in its ambition. Create the ultimate racing engine disguised as experimental development, build a prototype muscle car that wouldn't officially exist for years, and prove that GM could destroy Ford anytime they chose to unleash their full engineering fury. The mad scientists enter Zora Arkus-Duntov, Chevrolet's chief engineer, and the Ukrainian immigrant who had become America's performance prophet. A former race driver turned engineering genius, Duntov understood that racing victories sold cars better than any advertising campaign ever could. His desk was covered with racing magazines, lap time sheets, and fever dreams of automotive domination. Working alongside him was Dick Kyneth, Chevrolet's experimental engine specialist and mechanical wizard. While Duntov strategized corporate rebellion, Kyneth crafted the weapons that would execute it. Together, they formed GM's underground resistance movement against their own racing ban. Their laboratory was Chevrolet Engineering's experimental division, a classified facility where prototype engines were born under code names that disguised their true purpose. Away from corporate oversight and federal scrutiny, this became ground zero for the most forbidden project in GM history. The challenge was absolutely treasonous. Create a racing engine so advanced it would make Ford's 427 obsolete, design it for a car that didn't officially exist, and test it in secret while maintaining complete deniability if discovered by corporate executives or government regulators. The Beast Unleashed. The foundation of Chevrolet's secret weapon was a completely new 427 cubic inch big block that shared absolutely nothing with existing production engines. Cast from iron so advanced it seemed extraterrestrial, this block featured deck heights, bore spacings, and structural reinforcements that wouldn't appear in production cars for nearly a decade. But calling it just a 427 was like calling a fighter jet just an airplane. This engine incorporated technology that made contemporary engines look like steam-powered antiques. The cylinder heads featured massive rectangular ports that moved air with jet engine efficiency, while combustion chambers were shaped like mathematical equations designed for perfect flame propagation. The valve train was pure mechanical violence disguised as precision engineering. Solid lifters operated valves through rocker arms that looked more like aircraft components than automotive parts. The camshaft was ground with duration and lift numbers that would make modern race engines nervous, designed to produce maximum power at RPMs that stock engines couldn't survive. Compression ratios approaching 12.5 to 1 demanded race fuel and expert tuning, but delivered power outputs that defied belief. Conservative estimates suggested 500 horsepower, but dyno sheets whispered of numbers approaching 600 naturally aspirated horses. This wasn't just advanced for 1963. It was advanced for any era. This wasn't just an engine. It was a declaration of war against the limits of internal combustion physics. The Phantom Camaro. While the mystery motor was revolutionary enough, Chevrolet's real secret was the car they built around it. 4 years before the Camaro would officially debut, Untold's team was already testing prototype F-body chassis with advanced suspension systems and aerodynamic bodies that wouldn't appear in showrooms until 1967. The prototype looked like a glimpse into automotive future, with flowing lines and aggressive proportions that made contemporary cars seem crude and outdated. But this wasn't just advanced styling. It was wind tunnel-tested aerodynamics designed to slice through air at speeds approaching 200 miles per hour. The chassis was equally advanced, featuring independent rear suspension decades before it became common, four-wheel disc brakes that could stop the car from terminal velocity, and suspension geometry calculated for maximum cornering speeds while maintaining straight-line stability at racing velocities. Weight distribution was obsessively optimized, with the massive mystery motor positioned for perfect balance despite its exotic dimensions. Every component was chosen for minimum weight and maximum strength, from aluminum suspension pieces to magnesium transmission cases that looked more like jewelry than automotive parts. But the real terror was its potential. If Chevrolet had chosen to produce this combination in 1963, the entire muscle car era would have been over before it started. No competitor had anything that could challenge this level of integrated performance engineering. The track terror. When Chevrolet's mystery motor finally hit racing circuits in carefully disguised test sessions, the results were nothing short of automotive terrorism. Lap times that had stood for years were being obliterated by margins that made competitors question their own equipment and sanity. At Riverside, the prototype recorded speeds that shouldn't have been possible for production-based engines. Where Ford's finest 427s struggled to maintain 160 miles per hour, the mystery motor was clocking sustained speeds approaching 180 miles per hour with mechanical ease that seemed almost insulting to the competition. NASCAR testing sessions became classified events as Chevrolet desperately tried to hide their illegal advantage. When word leaked that Chevrolet was testing experimental engines that made Ford's total performance program look amateur, corporate panic spread through Dearborn like wildfire. Street testing revealed equally devastating performance advantages: acceleration times that made Corvettes seem slow, braking distances that defied physics, and handling capabilities that redefined American performance expectations. The Phantom Camaro wasn't just faster than contemporary cars, it was faster than cars that wouldn't exist for another decade. The corporate cover-up. By late 1963, Chevrolet's mystery motor program had become too successful for its own survival. Performance numbers were leaking to automotive journalists despite official denials. Ford was threatening formal complaints to federal regulators about GM's obvious racing violations. Corporate executives were demanding explanations for unauthorized engine development programs. The cover-up began immediately and brutally. All mystery motor engines were recalled to Chevrolet engineering under the pretense of completing experimental evaluation. Documentation was classified or destroyed. Engineers were transferred to different projects with strict confidentiality agreements. The prototype Camaros were even more thoroughly erased from history. Bodies were cut up, chassis were scrapped, and every component was either destroyed or hidden in anonymous storage facilities. The cars that could have revolutionized American performance were systematically eliminated as if they had never existed. The decision to kill the mystery motor program was unanimous and immediate. All development was terminated, all testing was suspended, and all evidence was buried so deeply that automotive historians would spend decades trying to piece together the truth. The death and legacy. The official death of the Mystery Motor program came in early 1964, when GM's racing ban was reinforced with penalties that could cost engineers their careers. Every component was either destroyed or hidden so completely that some pieces wouldn't surface again for 30 years. But the technology didn't disappear. It went underground. Mystery motor innovations quietly appeared in production engines throughout the 1960s, disguised as normal development when they were actually declassified military secrets from Chevrolet's shadow war against Ford. The 1965 Mark IV 396, the 1967 L88 427, and even the legendary ZL1 aluminum big block all carried mystery motor DNA in their design. The engine that officially never existed became the foundation for every high-performance Chevrolet engine that followed. The Phantom Camaro's advanced chassis technology suffered a similar fate. Independent rear suspension, four-wheel disc brakes, and aerodynamic body design all reappeared in production cars years later, but without acknowledgement of their forbidden origins in 1963 prototype testing. Today, surviving mystery motor components are worth fortunes to collectors who understand their historical significance. But their real value isn't monetary, it's philosophical. They represent the road not taken, the performance revolution that could have happened 5 years earlier if courage had matched engineering excellence. Resurrection and modern legacy. Modern Chevrolet has spent decades trying to recapture the mystery motor's revolutionary spirit with varying degrees of success. The current LT5 supercharged engines produce over 750 horsepower, numbers that exceed even the wildest mystery motor estimates. But something essential was lost in the corporate sanitization process. The original mystery motor represented pure automotive rebellion, a willingness to defy corporate policies and government regulations in pursuit of mechanical perfection. It was engineering without compromise, designed by enthusiasts who were willing to risk their careers for the perfect lap time. Today's high-performance engines are marvels of technology, but they're also products of committees, regulations, and corporate risk management. They're fast, reliable, and efficient, but they lack the dangerous edge that made the mystery motor legendary among the few who knew it existed. The 1963 prototype Camaro remains automotive legend among those privileged enough to know the truth. Not because it was the fastest or most powerful, but because it represented something deeper. It was proof that American engineers could build anything if given the freedom to pursue perfection without political interference. Drop your take in the comments. Was the Mystery Motor Camaro the greatest performance car that never was, or just another corporate conspiracy theory? And what would you give to take a ride in one of those phantom prototypes that officially never existed?